actually hit record.
Always do. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 92 of Man Seeks Adventure. And this week, I don't know if you could tell already, but we're celebrating the life, the times of our buddy Eddie Van Halen. And Dave is totally decked out. And it's, I've got my office decked out. And we're ready to rock and we're ready to roll. Because, man, this week kind of sucked. You know, when you start out the week with hearing that somebody that you knew and somebody that was such an influence on so many people has passed away, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
So
just when you think 2020 can't get worse, you go, Jesus.
Yeah, that's why I quit saying long ago, can 2020 get any worse? Because it keeps getting worse. So I'll tell you where I was when the news came down and who I was with. But before we do that, because this is a rock and roll show and because we're paying tribute to Eddie Van Halen, we're going to start with our drink of the day. Drink of the day. And Dave, I have a drink for you today.
I think that you outdid yourself, honestly.
This one I came up with this drink, and I call it the Eruption, dude. This is the Eruption. It had to be a red drink.
It's a beautiful thing.
It had to be. And this glass right here, I made that sucker. I striped it myself. So that is it, guys.
That is above and beyond.
That is my tribute. So what we've got is we've got a glitch right now. That's what.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Is that on your end? Or just, what's happening?
That's an eruption.
It's the Eruption. There we go. Okay, enough of that.
Oh, it was weird. Holy crap.
So, maybe that was coming from beyond. It was like a thumbs up.
So
anyways.
He turned it up to 15. Isn't that what he said?
Having known Eddie and hung out with him and, been with him in his drinking days, been with him in his sober days, I know that man loved vodka and wine and beer. But he loved vodka. And so I threw together a drink, a classic. We didn't just leave it at cranberry and vodka, Dave. I threw in some stuff to give it a little bit more rock and roll. I threw in some lime, and I threw in some ginger beer. But what I didn't do is garnish it with something foofy on top because this is fucking rock and roll, man.
That's right, buddy.
This is Eddie Van Halen. That glass doesn't enough. So cheers to a lifetime of rock and a lifetime of roll and an innovator who did so much. The Eruption.
To Ed. Damn it.
And I took a big drink in his honor. So we're going to set that right back there so you can check it out during the show.
Look at that.
And the news came down pretty hard because even though I had been privy to a little bit of information about his illness, it wasn't expected to be something that was fatal right now, So that was a little tough. Where were you at when you got the news, Dave? At work or?
Yeah, no, I was at work.
I remember you texting me.
Well, and I had sent you that. So I was wearing we had a big press event. So for everyone interested, stay tuned for next Wednesday or Thursday. What's the date today? Wednesday or Thursday, the embargo goes off. So you can see a new product from Acura, which is really cool. So we had a sneak preview for journalists. And they came out and, even the Japanese guys are like, oh, Eddie Van Halen. Like, I love him. And I was like, yeah. So I wanted to wear something sporty and cool and show my personality. And then I'm walking in and then Madler's come running over and go, dude, you wore that. How did you know? And I'm like, I didn't know. Shit, man. So it was just weird.
Yeah, a friend of mine, well, you know him, Matt D'Andreff, who does
Uh,
Shift and Steer with me. He
right.
saw it come across TMZ because I think he's got him on speed dial, and
they,
uh,
they call him.
and
How does
he goes,
TMZ get that news? I saw they had broken the news. It's like,
yeah,
what the hell, man?
it's
Gee.
they have
Yeah,
doctors on payroll and
that's it.
sheriffs and
Yeah,
you know, but yeah, and I was like, what, and so I go to TMZ and check it out for myself, and then I go, damn it, and
well,
yeah, it
and
was true.
well, and I
Pardon me?
think that the relationship, especially you with Mike, and you think that we kind of knew maybe they would do something, and you kept thinking that, but then the reality is, I guess for fans, it's kind of cool that they thought they might reunite and do something.
Dude,
But
I
yeah,
think there was a pretty good chance, but
it took,
illness was, it was
yeah,
greater
too
than
far
anything.
along. Yeah,
And I'm not going to say anything more about that.
yeah.
But the it just by happenstance, I was with our buddy Billy F. Gibbons from ZZ Top on Tuesday, and we were doing some work on a couple different projects, and I hadn't gotten to him yet, where I was meeting up with him, and my phone rings, and it was him, and you know how he is, he goes, Mr. Brad. I'm like, hey, Billy, what's up? And he goes, have you heard about our friend? And I said, unfortunately, I have. And he goes, man, we'll talk when you get here. And it was just, there's an icon right there, and it hit him just like everybody else, and
Exactly.
later in the day, after we'd done our business and we'd been, going over stuff all day, Billy looked over at me, and he just kind of over his shoulder, and he went, I'm going to miss that guy.
Yeah.
And I said, I am too. And we started talking, and Billy shared the story of the first time he ever met him with me. And he said that they were at a music event.
Yeah,
he thought it might have been, pardon me?
It was an interview, like, because B.B. King was there.
Well, he said, he set it up for me. He said that they were at this music convention. He goes, it might have been NAMM. I don't know. It was probably predating NAMM. He goes, because this was the late 70s, man. And he goes, Eddie had just burst on the scene. And he goes, I was doing an interview. You're absolutely right. He goes, I was doing an interview. And this journalist said to me, hey, do you know Eddie Van Halen? And he goes, no, I've never met the man. And he goes, would you like to? I'm interviewing him next. And so he brought them together. And he said, Ed came right up to him. It's like, oh, man, your guitar playing is just phenomenal. You are so great. And he goes, all I could think of was, you're talking to me? and he goes, I looked at him and I said, what about you? And all that stuff you're doing with your fingers. And he's sitting there going like this, And he goes, I was blown away. Nicest guy. He goes, he was just such a pleasant man. And then we talked some stories, and then I looked at Billy and I said, Billy, I said, one thing that a lot of the fans probably don't realize, but you and I would know, is that Eddie really was pretty shy.
Oh, really?
And, yeah. And
he liked vodka, because he couldn't get past the shyness.
But he looked at me and he went, Brad? He goes, you're right. He was shy. And I said, and man, that guitar of his was where he felt comfortable. Yeah. Because Dave, I can remember going up to his house, and if we're out in the driveway or something like that, that was one thing. But walk into the 5150 studio or into the house to sit down and talk or whatever, he didn't spend a minute without that guitar in hand, sitting there just plunking on it, just doing licks and doing while he was talking. I don't think he even knew he was doing it.
Yeah, he helped him think.
And,
but like when I met him at Boyd's through you guys, and that was kind of before we were as close as we are.
Right.
It was still through you, and it was his truck. And remember, you were painting the mirror, and I was like just standing there, it's like, and I was thinking, Yeah, I'm sitting here with Eddie Van Halen. This is pretty effing cool. At the time, and you try to be us, where it's just kind of cool and like, hey, how you doing, man? It's like, fuck.
I know. Inside, you're going,
Yeah, I know, but he is like, and he's not big, so he's kind of, almost waifish and feels, you want to protect him. You're like, dude, come here. Like, I heard that Billy told him, like, at one point after a long relay, he said, hey, have you learned that fourth chord yet? Because Eddie plays like the 3-chord rock, and he's like, hey, did you learn that fourth chord yet? Which is really cool.
That's funny.
Of all people, Eddie. Like,
yeah. I mean, the thing is, you talk about that truck that we did for him. People always assume that I met him at Boyd's, but I knew him way before that because because of the affiliation with Van Halen through my days at Vision, when we dealt with so many rock bands. Yeah. And so I kind of brought him into there.
It's almost the opposite, right? Yeah. I said it was almost the opposite. You brought him to Boyd's.
Because he wanted to do a truck. It was one of those things that happened just when everything aligned, man. Because he had told me he wanted to do a truck. And at the same time, Herb Fischel, from the head of race and engineering at Chevrolet and General Motors, and a guy named Mark McPhail came in the door and said we were doing, at Boyd's, of course, we were doing so many trucks and, selling lots of product for GM. They came in and they said, hey, how would you guys like to do something to highlight our new LT1 Corvette motor, put suspension under it, and do a like a Corvette truck? And I was like, oh, hey, I got an idea. And so we brought them together, and Harry Hibbler, who at the time was the publisher of Hot Rod and Sport Truck and all that, we got with him, and he said, we've been wanting to do a giveaway. So it just all aligned. Yeah. We built the one truck that was bone stock, other than being lowered, having the Boyd treatment with the billet grill, the smoothie bumpers, and the smooth rear pan, but it didn't have anything mechanical. And the paint, some people asked me if it was stripe tape, and that was actually painted in the shop. Those stripes all over the truck, the Frankenstein stripes were real. The wheels on the giveaway truck were tape. But on Ed's truck, we made wheels. We did all Corvette suspension. We did the LT1 and did the full Boyd treatment on it. And that was a hell of a truck, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
And so it was neat because, we got to bring all those people together. And that's where those famous photos of Ed and I standing in the photo studio together were from. We brought the giveaway truck up to the Peterson studio. His truck wasn't done yet. And we brought that up, and I'll never forget, because I'm not a guitar player. I don't even try to be a guitar player. I don't even know a chord. But that photo of me holding his world famous guitar, and he walked up to me and he goes, hey, why don't you hold this for the photo? And I was like, whoa, really? And so he slings it over my shoulders. And Dave, I took my arm and I like rested it on the neck of the guitar like that to try and look cool. And he kind of in a fun way, he kind of leaned over and he goes, hey Brad, at least try and make it look like you can play. and he took my fingers, literally grabbed my fingers.
He posed your hand.
If you look at the photo, it looks like I can play because I got a chord there, and Eddie had put my fingers on that chord, and then I'm like that, and it was so cool because he just in a fun way, just come on, you can at least look like it. And he does it for me, and he was like that, he was cool like that, and it was something that the fans never got to see,
Right. And at that time, were you friends with Mike already, or that kind of spurred that he was doing his truck there?
I knew Mike, I knew Ed, I knew Sam, but I actually knew Ed more than I knew Mike at about that time,
At that time.
because Mike told me a story. You've seen my little black Mercedes I had back then. I had a 300 CE two-door Mercedes that I had shaved the door handles. We'd slammed on the ground, built some one-off wheels, did a billet grill, had a hood flown over from Europe, and tricked it all out.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
the
cool.
day Ed came down for that photo shoot was the first time he ever saw that car. And it was sitting outside of the studio, and he came walking in, and he came up to me and he goes, "Hey man, whose black Mercedes is that out there?" He goes, that thing is so cool. And I go, "Oh, that's my new car." And he goes, "No way." And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, Mike told me years later that they were in the studio shortly after that. And he said Eddie came in and they were supposed to start recording, and Ed was on talking to the Mercedes dealer and telling him, "No, man, I want it lowered. I want it black. I want it." And he was ordering himself the same car. And Mike said, "Where'd you see this car?" And he goes, "Well, I did this photo shoot with a guy I know." And he goes, "You've met him?" He goes, "You know the guy from Boyd's?" And then it went from there. Then Mike came down with Scotty Ross to talk about fixing his truck that he had gotten involved in through Sport Truck Magazine. Through Truckin' Magazine. He got involved in doing that Phantom dually. Remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
And it had gone way off the rails.
Yeah.
It had gone way off the rails. And so he came down and he goes, "Brad, can you help me out with this?" And
Boyd did a lot of that, didn't he? Like fix some cars that had gone off the rails.
I went up to Mike's house and remeasured everything in his driveway. And it was funny because I look at these guys as friends, and Mike's standing there, and I remember my wife going, "How'd it go?" And I go, "Oh, we're good." I said, "We were working on the truck." She goes, "What do you mean we?" And I go, "Well," I said, I was standing there. Mike said, "Is there anything I can do?" I said, "Hell yeah, grab the floor jack and jack this thing up, man." And that kind of just, it just went from there. We became great friends because I didn't treat him like a rock god that he was, and we got his truck fixed. We got it, new wheels built for it. And then from there, we did the aluminum base. And because the guys invited me down to Cabo, and we put together that whole...
right? Once that happened, you guys got really close, right?
Dave, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, the bass, that kind of started it with Mike, right?
Yeah.
Built the thing, and I got the dice out of it.
Yes, you got the billet dice. And what all comes full circle is Eddie got a car. He got a car, built it kind of like mine, but it wasn't mine, so he was never happy. He tried to buy mine a couple times, and I said, "No, it's not for sale." And but Michael built one for his wife in a convertible, and we did it for him at Boyd's. And he said when he pulled up in that one day at the studio, Ed was like, "Oh, wait a minute, where did you get that?" And this was like a dark charcoal color. And he goes, Brad did it at their shop over at Boyd's for Sue. And he said Ed was like, "I should have had my car gone down there," but it was fun. It was awesome.
Well, I tell you, he changed everything, including, doing cars and things, just that kind of attitude. As soon as he striped his guitar like that, we were like, shit. I literally, I did the Shank cars 2 years ago at Daytona. Those, the black and white ones. Yeah. So one was black, one was white, but one had black stripes, one had white. Anyway, I was telling Mike Shank, who owns the team, I said, "Hey, and by the way, you should check out, remember I was telling you about the car I was working on?
Yeah.
It's out, it's in the press now."
Oh, it is?
So we can put it up on our website. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Give me a photo of it. We'll put it up.
Yeah, it's crazy. But he goes, "What is this?" And I sent him that, and he looked at it, and he said, he spent like about 10 minutes, and he goes, "I got to call you back." And he called me back like in 10 minutes and goes, I've never seen anything like this. Is like Eddie Van Halen. And I go, that's exactly what my inspiration was. So we should post those cars too, because that was totally Ed.
Give me that stuff. We'll put it up because it'd be cool.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, talk about that Frankenstein stripe being so just, just off out of his brain. But like, have you walked into a McDonald's and seen it on the wall?
Yeah.
There's that one footprint that they have.
All kinds of places, yeah.
Tell me that is not based on Ed's, because it's a yellow and black wall, and it's got the stripe.
I mean, I literally, I was going through the garage when I was doing all the work in there and found an old Panasonic phone I bought in Japan, and I painted it with Eddie stripes on it. I was like, I don't know, it's all over the place. Like, oh my God, dude. But yeah, it's what came out of that guitar that was amazing.
Oh my God. I mean, it's amazing what came. And, you know, when you hear the stories of the early days where I wasn't around back then, I was, but I didn't know him. It was, you know, guys going to the whiskey and him playing and turning his back, because guys would get right up to the stage and try and look around to see how he was doing it.
What are you doing?
How you make those sounds, you know? I mean, but I'll tell you a funny Boyd Coddington story that was around the truck. And we, as I said, when we did the photo shoot, the giveaway truck was done first, then we finished Ed's truck. And I got to drive it. It had limo tinted windows on it. And we had, I remember I had, Chip didn't work for us full time yet, but Chip
was interning, right?
He was interning.
Yeah.
And so this came across, and I said, hey, Chip, we need to draw this truck up. It's going to have Corvette suspension. It's going to have this. And I said, now, Ed was very, very specific. He does not want, you know, stripes on it at all, but I talked him into, we could do a little detail stripe. And he came back, gave me this drawing, and it had a nice stripe down the side. But the final truck, I had gone back to Chip, and I said, Chip, it needs something. I said, why don't we end that stripe up at the front of the nose and make it look like the headstock of a guitar? Just give it that outline. Right. And Chip was like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And so he redid it. And so the day we're going to deliver the truck, I'm in it. I'm driving it. And man, Dave, people coming up alongside going, because they think Ed's in it, you know? Yeah, and because it was even that little stripe down the side. They knew that's Eddie Van Halen, or at least it's a pretty damn cool truck that Eddie was.
Whoever thought that it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And driving up Sunset Boulevard to get to his house was like craziness. Every stoplight, people are careening and they're trying to, you know, to see who's in there. And
it's a cool truck too. It wasn't just.
Yeah. And so we get to the house, and Ed had seen all the art boards. I'd taken them up to him and everything, but he hadn't seen the finished truck. And we come pulling up in. Boyd was following me in his Mercedes, and we pull into the driveway in front of his house, and Ed comes out and he's like, oh man, this looks great. This is great. And you've seen the photo that I posted of Boyd, Ed, and I standing there leaning against it. Right. But he walked right up, and I go, so I told you we had to do a little bit of stripe. You know, we got to get that Van Halen influence in there. And he goes, oh, yeah, I think that'll work. He goes, looks pretty cool. I go, well, do you like it? I said, how we did the stock at the end. I said, to give it a little more. And he goes, yeah, it'd be good if it was the right Strat.
It was a Fender Strat.
He looked at me, he goes, Brad, that's not a Strat headstock. And I'm like, you know, of course, to him, that's like us looking at a car and going, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never even a million years did I think, he plays this. I should make sure that, you know, but it was just one of those observations, you know.
Yeah, but that's him, right? He was so into the construction of it, you know, finally started doing his own guitars, but yeah.
And so then we're standing there. I think Wolfie had to be about 5, maybe about then. And Ed went into the house for something, and Wolfie comes up to look at his dad's truck. And Boyd, you know how Boyd liked kids, and he looked at him and he goes, well, what do you think? And Wolfie looks at him and he goes, I like it. And he goes, what's your name? And he goes, Woofy. And Boyd looks at him and he goes, what's your name? And he goes, Woofy. And he said it really fast like that. He goes, Woofy. And Boyd kind of stands there a second and he goes, I'm sorry.
You didn't get it?
Tell me one more time. Woofy. Woofy Van Halen. And Boyd looks at me and he goes, I'll never forget. He looked at me and he goes, what's his name? And I go, it's Wolfie. It's short for Wolfgang. And Boyd looked at me and he went, what the hell kind of name is Woofy?
Of course.
It was awesome.
That's very Boyd.
Classic Boyd. Classic Boyd.
That is. The hell kind of name is Wolfie.
But the the whole truck, it was a great time. It was fun. But do you want to hear some other Eddie stories?
Of course.
You're supposed to say, nah, let's go. Let's leave.
Yeah.
So I was up at his house one time, and
is this the Alex story?
No, I'll tell you that one though. I'll tell you that one. This is the Kim Bassinger story.
Okay, cool.
Have I told you this one?
No, I don't know this one. I know I know the Alex with the 9/11. That one.
Yeah. So I was naked with Kim Bassinger. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's not the truth. No. So this is the 80s, and this is the height of Van Halen, the height of Kim Bassinger and everything. So the way Ed's house was laid out, you came off the Canyon Drive and there was a big gate and there was a gatehouse. Then you came up a long driveway that was a little bit of an uphill grade. Their main house was there. Then you went 180 degrees and up a little steeper hill, 5150 studio. And if you went past the studio, there was a house out at the end that looked out over the canyon, which was Ed and Val's original house before they built the big house. And at the time, Alec Baldwin and Kim Bassinger rented it as like a production office. They didn't live there. It was like a production office. Ed and I were standing out in front of 5150, and the way it was laid out, it was 5150 was raised up, and the driveway that came around and curved was down below. And he heard the gates open, and he hears this, and he kind of walks over and he looks, and he goes, oh, dude, come here. And I go, what? And he goes, here comes Kim. She drives kind of crazy. And here comes this like 500 SL Mercedes, a white one, and it's ripping, dude. I mean, she had to be going like 50. She comes around that, and without even slowing down, Ed and I are standing out in front of the studio, and she goes, woof. And because when he said, here comes Kim, and I go, Kim, and he goes, Kim Bassinger. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to meet Kim Bassinger. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, man. No, all I saw was some blonde hair go by, and I see her park at the house, get out in a huff. And I can remember she had on like this all white outfit, got out of her car, slammed the door, and walked in the house in like a huff. And he goes, yeah, man, you got to be careful when she comes in because she's always driving like that.
But Wolfie get in the house.
Yeah, exactly. And I found out later there was something that happened that day. Like, I don't know if it was her and Alec breaking up or she lost some big part or something, but
it seemed like they got in a fight a lot.
Yeah. But it was just one of those classic moments in time when it's like, yeah. I mean, how many people can say they were standing with Eddie and Kim Bassinger almost ran him over? You know, I mean, it just doesn't happen every day, Dave.
So Kim Bassinger, Eddie, and Brad walk into a bar.
But it was awesome. But you were asking about the Alex Van Halen story. Yeah. But I want to digress for a second.
Okay.
Tell you why Eddie didn't want stripes all over the truck. Well, the obvious is because he's Eddie.
Yeah.
The second reason was he had an incident at one time that he told me about. He had a Harley Davidson, really nice one, and the tank was all Frankensteined out. And he had to go to a wedding. And if you remember, anybody who remembers back in the day on Sunset, where Guitar Center is and was, right across the street, remember there was that big tuck shop there?
Mhm.
And it was huge.
I don't know that, but I certainly know that you can get a good margarita across the street.
Well,
I
anyway,
never made it to the tuck shop.
there was a tuck shop. And Ed said that he rode his bike down the hill, came down. He goes, I drove right up on the sidewalk. And he goes, I'll never forget. I parked my Harley literally in front of the window, touching the building. He goes, I'm going to run in really quick, try this tux on, and jump on the bike and go home. He goes, I walked in, said, hey, I'm here to try on that tux. He said that he walked in the fitting room, came walking out the door, looked in the mirror, and he looked over and his bike was gone.
No shit.
And he goes, it was just the biggest target because it had that. And he said he got rid of his 5150 license plates on his Porsche. He got rid of, he goes, it was just like, because then, and the downside of stardom. No, it's, but it was just a funny story and it related back to that. But
There you go. Hey, Ed Leffler, I need a new bike.
exactly. Okay, so Dave, before I tell the 9:30 story, why don't you tell about the first time you saw Van Halen play?
Live?
Mm-hmm.
I saw them. I saw them. I had moved here, and I saw them. I'm gonna say at Santa Monica Civic Center, maybe, because it's kind of a tweener. But yeah, and it was. I know for a fact that I had seen them on like Don Kirshner or something right after Jamie's Crying had come out, and when that album came out, it was just like, what the hell, man?
I know. It was like, what?
And it was just kind of like, and I was going through a tough time, which most people that listen would think I never get tough times.
You're happy-go-lucky day.
Yeah, it's like, dude. But literally, I was going through a rough time, and shit you not, that came out, and I got it, and just went, shit. What am I upset about? This is awesome. I'm gonna be amazing, whatever. But
and music can do that, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Art Center. I'm gonna do all that stuff. It's like, but I can cite that album as one of the albums that pushed me to that. But then I saw him at Civic Center, kind of just before 1984. So I got Women and Children First and Diver Down, and it was spectacular. It was just like, man, this is they're just so and as Ted Templeman put it. The story of Ted Temple when he first saw them in the Starlight, I think.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he got a friend of his says, you got to go see this kid play guitar. Go see this band Van Halen. He went down to see him and he goes, dude, he's amazing, but we can't sign him, man. This singer's just awful. And it was kind of like that. And Dave, Dave is so Dave that and now you think that is Van Halen's sound because Dave is Dave, but you think about it and think, man, and what other band could survive like that other than maybe Bob Dylan of having not a great voice, but being famous or something. But he said that Ed was so just unique that we got to sign him, man.
And Mikey filled in where David dropped off.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. Dave, and he knew that Dave, Mike's vocals certainly, but they took care of that. But
at the time, David, he gave him that pizzazz. He made him stand out. He is
prototypical rock star. He is. He's that guy. He's Mick Jagger, but more gregarious.
Right. We've all heard the story of how, I'm having old man syndrome here, Dave. Gene Simmons from KISS.
Yeah,
he saw him play and went to those guys.
Yeah.
And said,
Yeah,
man,
you gotta see this guy. Yeah.
And so fast forward years later, 90, I'm going to say early 2000s, maybe 2003. I'm stranded in a hotel. I think I've told this story before, in Detroit, Michigan, during the big power outage. And I'm staying at a 5-star hotel in Detroit with Kiss and Aerosmith. And the power's out, so we're all down in the lobby. There's a grand piano down there, and it was like a
open bar.
And it was fucking surreal. I mean, the piano's going, they're singing, we're hanging out, all by candlelight, and I'm sitting there with Gene, and I had met Gene over the years, and it was funny. Total side story. He called my office once, and this girl that worked for me. She came in and she goes, there's a guy on the phone. He says he's Gene Simmons from Kiss for you. And she goes, it's got to be him. It sounds just like. I go, yeah, it's him. And I walked over, sat down next to him, and I go, hey, Gene. He goes, hey, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh man, stranded like you guys. And he's sitting there, no lie, with a table of women. Okay. I don't even know where they came from, but and he goes, no, he goes, remind me, I'm trying to think. We know each other from where, and I go, Gene, I said, I'm, business partners with Michael Anthony and all the guys, Van Halen. And I said, you and I worked together on some stuff years ago. That's right. Brad. I discovered those guys. I discovered Van Halen.
Of course.
And, and I'm like,
Brad, I discovered Van Halen.
Exactly, yeah. I discovered Van Halen. But he said exactly what you just said. He goes, if they would have had a better singer, they would have made it that much faster. He goes, people didn't want to sign him because of Roth.
Well, most people know it already, but, we should reiterate, and the irony of it, but Ted Templeman had done Montrose's first album, which was also a milestone album for me. But he said, we gotta fire this guy and get Sammy into this band.
Yeah.
And he said, and he admits that at that time, if they had done it then, it probably would have been, Eddie's guitar, but it would have kind of moved on to something else and never been what it was, because Dave was such an integral part. But
I gotta admit,
close to not doing it, man.
You know what? I mean, when you look at it, Roth made those videos, man. I mean, in the MTV video music days.
Yeah, he did.
Sammy would have been too serious. Roth was just flamboyant.
And that was it. And Sammy they would have gotten in an argument about creative difference, but whatever, who knows?
We're not going to do a video like that, man. We're not going to wear samurai outfits.
Well, and Sam, Sam is also a great dude, and we love him, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that Dave, probably the friction was part of it. That Dave brought some kind of ridiculousness to it. That and we were talking about how shy, because Mike's shy too.
Oh,
Mike's he's not shy to us, but he's kind of, and it's not. I mean, of course he's famous, but it's also he's kind of like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we see him in a different light because we know him so well. Yeah. He doesn't have to put up his defenses around us, but we see it from the other side where people are walking up and he's like, so, but, the Alex Van Halen story. So, there was a time when, all the guys were up at the studio, and I wasn't there, so I wasn't firsthand. But
we should preface this with the fact that both brothers used to build model cars. Which, when you hear that, you go, "Dude, we're kindred spirits." They used to build model cars, but then they blow them up. And Ed said they blew them up, and then they put them in like some kind of bag to make it sound like some drums from, the Kinks or something. And literally, they lost me. They had me, and then they lost me.
And they lost you?
Well, this is their attitude towards cars. So now tell Alex.
They were car guys. I've said this many times. They were car guys. They love cars. They just didn't take care of their cars.
Right.
And I saw that time and time again. Well, in this instance, their financial manager was up at the studio, and I know Michael. It's a different Michael, and Michael's a car guy too. He's just a little more Poindexterish, and so he was telling them about the new 930 turbos and man, how badass these cars were, and so they were like, well, we should all go get one. And he basically, yeah, you could afford it. They drove down the hill to Beverly Hills Porsche. Now, can you imagine that guy the day they all walked in?
Yeah.
Hey, man, we want to each buy a Porsche. They all bought 930 Porsches and turbo Porsches. And it could have been 993. I don't know what era it was, but I remember they all bought turbo Porsches. And so fast forward, I'm up at the studio and, Ed's car's there. Mikey had one and we're talking about him. Alex is on his way over. Now, Alex lived farther down the canyon. He had to take Mulholland. And as he used to put it, he liked to hot foot it through the canyon because I like to hot foot it through that canyon. And if you look at any of the stuff on Alex, he was a car guy too. He had a Gilstrand, a Corvette. He had all kinds of stuff. And he came through the canyon and there was this, well, I won't go there. So he comes home. We hear the gates open. We're all standing outside of the studio. It's like Scotty Ross, Mikey, Ed, and myself. And we're standing there and we hear this horrible noise. And we look down and here's this brand new Porsche, which looked like it hadn't been washed since the day he got it. And it's coming up the hill and we're going, what's going on? What's going on with that thing? Why is it making all that noise? And what's with the front end? Did he hit something? As he gets to us, the front fascia, and for those of you that don't know, that's the whole front bumper. It was held on by two screws on either side and it had folded under and was being pushed like a snowplow, man. And so set the scene. We're all standing there. He comes pulling up right alongside us. And here's Alex, lanky, sitting there, and he rolls down the window, kind of flops his arm out, and he goes, man, my car's making some crazy shit noise, man. I don't even know what it's doing. And we all just started laughing, man. We're just like, and he goes, what? And he gets out, and he looks, and he goes, oh, shit. And he goes, man, that happened about 5 miles back, I bet. He goes, there's that one part where you come into the curve, and it goes high, and then it goes low, and then it goes high again. And he goes, it started right after that. And we're like, I think it was Mikey. Mikey goes, you didn't get out to check it? He goes, oh, no, I wasn't that far away. It's just, and I mean, it was hilarious.
It's a different world, but
yeah, it was awesome. And it's,
I'm pretty sure that, it's weird for us. And you think about, Mike and his emotions with this whole thing. And it's just, I feel bad for Mike. I do.
I haven't even spoke to Mike.
Yeah.
Because they were doing their
pay-per-view.
Yeah. And, he was tied up with that. And then he was leaving town this morning.
Yeah.
And, Dave, I didn't even feel comfortable posting anything, but I had so many people messaging me and stuff that I finally put something up really late in the day. I just feel like you got to give it a little space, And
it's just kind of like, maybe it's not true. Let's
Well, and the other thing too is I've got all these great stories about Ed from over the years, but I'm the first one to say I wasn't like best friends with Eddie. I don't want anybody to think, oh man, I was hanging with him every day and stuff. No, I just had the very exclusive look behind the curtain
Sure.
got to hang out, got to be friends, and got to have a lot of adventures. And I remember one of my best concerts was we were in Dallas, and a lot of times the band would have family and really close friends sit at the mixer board, and there'd be, a few seats at the mixer board. And that's where I sat for a lot of the shows. And in Dallas, I flew in, we hung out with everybody, and then the show came, we went backstage, and then huge arena show. And sitting at the board with with everybody, and it's cool because you look down on the board and you can see their set list, all handwritten and everything, and you've got the perfect line shot. Well, as soon as Alex goes into his 10-minute drum solo, right before that, Ed's still on stage doing his solo, and here comes, I see the flashlight coming down the aisle, and it's one of their Samoan guys that worked for him, and he comes, he goes, "Brad, Charlotte, come on," and we walk through the crowd, and you see all these people, in the crowd. They're like, what's going on? Because he takes us all the way to the front, walks us through. Now we're between the stage and the people, the barrier. We walk across the front of the stage and into the back, and, they all have their little areas set up. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do some shots, man. That was like a rock star moment. We did shots alongside the stage while Alex is doing his, I could look up and see him from behind doing his, thing. And I'm standing back there with the guys doing shots. And Charlotte, my wife, she's not like, woo, I mean, she's, she was doing shots with, I look over, her and Sam are over there doing, and how many shots you doing? She went, I did 2,
Yeah, with that, when we were backstage at St. Louis, we only did 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
We definitely did 2.
We did at least 2.
We did it, and then maybe more. But I think I said hi to you. I'm gonna say shit at it was probably Orange County Fairgrounds.
Orange County Fairgrounds. You were going out, and I was headed backstage.
Yeah. Well, no, that was Sam. But this was Van Halen.
Right. Yeah.
It was Van Halen. I think you were by the soundboard, and I said hi because I had gone to that. And that was Pacific Amphitheater. Yeah, that time was Sam, and I was coming down you were coming down the stairs over. Yeah, that was cool.
There was
honest to God, that's one of my favorite concerts ever. That one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Sam did everything. It wasn't.
He played everything that night.
Because he didn't just do like current Wabarita stuff or something. Because he did. I've done everything for you, and gave like Rick Springfield shit for the song "Going Bigger." Remember that? Anyway, I digress. But yeah,
I remember one of the most awkward concerts was the guys. I know all the guys from Poison, and they were just coming on, and Roth had left to do his solo deal.
California Girls.
Yeah, and so I know Roth.
Yeah.
And when I got there, Roth was the opening act, and Poison was the opening act, and he was the main act.
Eat Him and Smile to her.
Yeah, and so Roth invites me out. I come out, and I get there, and I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be so cool. I know Brett Michaels. I know all the guys. I'll go back and see them.
Right.
And they'd been doing their shows. Well, Poison was blowing up, man. They were like getting more popular than Dave. Well, Dave can't handle that. And so I get there, and his tour manager comes over, and he goes, we got a little problem, Brad. And I go, what's that? And he goes, well, I know you know Brett and Ricky and all the guys. And he goes, but you can't go over and see them. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes,
no shit.
Dave said if somebody goes over to their side, they don't come back. and so I'm like, and this is
Dave tour. Yeah.
Yeah, this is before cell phones, right? So it's like, I couldn't like, ring them up and go, hey guys, man. And, so I'm like, well, what the fuck do I do, man? It's like, do I go back and say hi to Dave and then
go over there
and then go up to the board, or so I did that. I went back, and typical Dave, he didn't like hang out with you like the guys. Yeah. He came out, kind of whisked through and did kind of a
I did. I've done backstage with
like, and then kind of just walked away. So I just waited until that settled down a little bit, and then I walked around all the way around outside to the other side, walked in, and then those guys, we hung out for a while. And then when the show was ready to go, I just walked up to the board and sat out there. But it was like, I was like, oh man, what do I do? It was like, but.
Yeah, well, if you go back to one of our podcast episodes, maybe it was Scotty.
Might have been, yeah, when we had Scotty Ross,
on the Sam
tour manager from Van Halen, and from Poison. It was Scotty. Scotty's the one who told me, because he was their tour manager.
Yeah, but it wasn't he the one where I was telling him about Sam and Dave, because I was backstage on that, and that was when they were alternating.
He had a wall.
They built a wall in the wall of plywood. It's good, not because of Sam.
They didn't want to see each other.
Yeah, Jesus.
Well, yeah. They all have their idiosyncrasies. Yeah, I mean, Dave used to, in the early years, nobody with blonde hair was allowed on stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and he meant, I don't care if it's a wife, girlfriend, mom, or what,
He hated that.
And then there was a time when Sam went through a thing where, if you don't know, if you've never been backstage can be the big party that you've always heard of, but a lot of times these guys are just trying to get their job done. But what they do is
it's less glamorous than you think.
And they build their little atmosphere. They have their retreat and they bring it in. If you've ever seen anybody with a motorhome, where when they park their motorhome and they start hanging their lights and they get out their furniture and all their stuff, that's what it is. And Mike and Sam always go for these island themes where they'll have, grass huts and tiki torches and all kinds of shit. Well, we were somewhere, and Sam was in this thing where when I'm ready to go on stage, I don't want anybody in my line of sight. And there was a white stripe of tape from his little seating area all the way around this, through this, past this, and up to his place on stage. And he literally didn't want to see anybody. He was in this stage where he was like meditating, and he wanted to be in that space all the way out till he saw the crowd. Well, I'd been back with Sam 5 minutes before talking, and we were laughing, and the guy comes in and he goes, hey Sam, hey, 5 minutes. And we're like, okay, cool. And he said to me, he goes, hey, you should go out there and grab a can of beer. It's right around the corner. And then he goes, just come stand right on the side of the stage, man. It's a great place to see it at this venue. And I was like, oh, cool. So I walk out, grab a beer, turn around, and they're bringing him out. And these guys took it serious, man. This big Samoan guy takes the straight arm and goes, up against the wall. He goes, Sam never want anybody in front of him. And Sam's looking, and it's like two guys with flashlights. And Sam goes, hey, see you after the show. But it was like, he told them, and they took it serious. It was.
It's funny, the backstage stuff, because Billy builds his little tent.
Yes, his tent.
And sleeps on the floor. Yeah, I mean, which is cool. But it's weird. I found it weird that the other members of ZZ Top, God love them, Dusty especially, that when they're coming out, they all have separate dressing rooms, and they kind of meet over by the stage. And I was stunned because when we were standing there with them, I was stunned how nervous that Dusty is.
Yeah, after all these years.
I think, dude, you're fucking ZZ Top. What? But they want to put on a good show, and they're worried about it. But it was just so funny that they're so.
Got his dog back there, and he says, "Got his dog," and then he heads out on stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, wow, man. how do I look? It's like, you look
Yeah.
fine. Shit, man. Let's go do shots. What?
The
Yeah.
the whole thing though about it's almost like, hey, I'm a rock star. Got to have some idiosyncrasy, whether it's
Sure.
real or not, just to
Yeah,
throw it down.
absolutely.
You know? And I mean, I keep things like this make me think of all the experiences and stories come out of my head that I haven't even thought of for years. And
Right.
I thought of, and I'll put a picture of this up on our page. I'll have to dig them out, but it's commonly referred to among our friends, my friends being Mikey and Sue and everybody,
Sure.
as the infamous Jones Beach trip. So the band was playing, Van Halen was playing like 3 shows in Jones Beach, and awesome venue because it's right on the beach. It's a small venue, very much like, what's the one right up in the hills?
Greek theater.
It's not the Greek, right up, you know, you can see Capitol Records from it. It's a guy's name.
Hollywood Bowl.
No, not Hollywood Bowl. The little one on the other side of the freeway.
I can't think of what you're thinking. You're sure it's not the Greek?
It's not the Greek. It's
The Greek is a cool one.
well, anyways, it's built in the side of the hill. Well, this one's at the beach, not huge, so you get a real intimate show. And we were back there, and they were playing multiple nights. I can sum up this trip in rock and roll, booze, fire, helicopters, limousines, and New York City. And so I've got to keep this brief because it's a whole book in itself. But we were all staying at this really nice hotel in New Jersey, just over from Jones Beach. And the first night when we went to the show, we all jump in the limousines, and there were 3 limousines. It was Mike, Sue, Charlotte, and I in one, Sammy, and his wife and somebody was with him in the other, and Alex and Ed in the third one. And then there was a crew van that followed us. And so we go to the show, do the show, come back. Well, when we're coming back, there's a walkie-talkie, and it goes, there's a ton of fans right outside of the hotel. What should we do? And so you hear these guys, you know, talking back and forth, the managers and they go, all right, alternate location. Bring them to the alternate location entrance. And so we pull to the side of the road. Alex and Ed get in with us, or it could have been Alex in one, Ed in the other. I can't remember. Might have had a couple drinks by then. And
2 shots.
and so they have one empty limousine, because as you came down the hill, all the fans were lining the street and out front of the hotel. So that one comes down as a decoy, and everybody chases it down the street. And then we come over the hill, and we go around the back, and it was just like a fucking movie, man. We pull up in the back, we all pile out, and you know, Scotty's like, okay, we're going through the kitchen. We went through the kitchen, the service entrance, and up the service elevators. And
the Beatles.
And it was so good. Charlotte looked at me and she goes, this is so cool. It's like a movie. We're going through the kitchen, man, you know? And the whole big thing, you know, the road manager, everybody's like, oh yeah, we got to get all those fans down there. We got to get the guys to their rooms. So we get to our rooms, and Charlotte and I are like, man, we're hungry. Yeah. We weren't there 10 minutes and the phone rings. Hey, Brad. I go, hey, what's up? Hey, man, we're all going to meet down in the bar. You want to meet us? We're going to get something to eat and drink. And I go, well, I thought you were trying to stay out of there because of the fans. No, we don't care. They care. We go down, all these fans in the lobby. We go, and they had one of their guys, their security guards, come over and kind of stand with his big arms, you know, in front of the stairway coming up into the bar. And the people that were in the bar they could stay. We got our tables. We ate dinner and drank drinks. And I ruined a pair of shoes of Sue Anthony's because I had a Absolute and cranberry. And I was telling a story like I do with my hands. And I went, and the drink went down. And I looked down and I go, oh, Sue, I'm so sorry. And she goes, that's all right. I got them in Paris. First time I ever wore them. And they were these pink, like satin shoes. And I totally fucked them up. And she was so sweet about it. She had to tell me where she got them. And it was the first time she wore them, but she was sweet about it. Yeah, it was like, I felt so bad, man. And, and that trip just went from there, Dave. It went on, and someday I'll tell the whole story on the show, but needless to say, Sam in one limo, Mikey and I in the other limo with our wives, we all went out to the Hamptons on another day off, and this big brush fire came up. And we're in this exclusive restaurant in the Hamptons, and what's funny is we went to the beach first. We didn't think to bring clothes, so we're still in shorts and like beach shirts. We come walking in, and this was like one of those where we're wearing blue blazers
But Sam loves his cuisine.
And we get there, and of course, the chef had invited Mike and Sam. So we get there, and this was one of these restaurants where there are yachts that pull up, people get off, come in and have dinner. We come walking in, and again, just like a movie, this trip had lots of movie moments. We come walking in, we'd been at the beach all day, looking around the Hamptons, and we come walking in, and it is the height of dinner hour, the place is packed, and we get out of the limo, we come walking in, the maitre d' standing there, and he sees these guys come in with these women, and we're in shorts, and like button-up shirts, but like Tommy Bahama type shirts or something. And we come walking in, and he goes, "May I help you, gentlemen?" And Mikey goes, "Oh, we're invited by the chef. So we're Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar and guests." And he goes, "Oh yes, sure." We takes us to this table, dead in the center of the restaurant, and the movie moment was everybody was talking. There was a murmur like a big restaurant like that has. If you remember that, pre-pandemic, you could go to a restaurant and lots of people be there eating. And the whole place, you could have heard a pin drop. They all look at us like, who are these guys coming into this? They're all in blue blazers. Casual for the people in there were khaki slacks and like an Izod shirt, and we come like, and the guy seats us at the best seat in the place, and everybody, and then the chef comes out and he goes, he takes the menus from the maitre d' and he goes, "I hope you don't mind. I have a special menu prepared, and I even brought things in from my personal garden." And people are looking at us like, "Who the fuck are you?" And then about halfway through dinner, we had just ordered, we had our cocktails, have an appetizer, and it was the old days, Dave. Here comes the maitre d' with a phone. He sets it down, plugs it in on the floor, and he goes, "Mr. Anthony, there's a call from a Scotty Ross." And Scotty, you can hear him through the phone. He goes, you guys got to get out of there, man. You got to get out of there. This big fire started, and it's going to cut everything in half. You guys won't be back. You won't be able to get back because they're going to shut down all the roads. And Mike goes, "Okay, all right. We're at dinner right now." And he goes, no, man, you got to go now. And he goes, "I already called the limo driver. You got to go now." And Mike's like, "Okay." Gets off. "What's going on?" And he goes, "Something about some fire." So we continue to eat dinner. We're having dessert, which the chef took us all into the kitchen to show us this chocolate souffle he prepared. Then back out to the table and gives it to the phone. Here comes the phone again. Guy sets it down, plugs it in. "I'm serious. They've cut off all the roads. You got to go." And so Sam goes, "Well, I'll jump in my limo and I'll go check it out. And so we're like getting ready to go. Sammy jumps in his, and the maitre d' stand, phone's for you again, sir. And he goes, the roads are cut off. I'm ordering a helicopter. And we're like, cool. You know, we thought that was cool, man. They're going to send a helicopter for us and copter us back into New Jersey. And just then, Sammy's limo driver called and said, they're still letting cars through. So we pile in the limo and hot-footed it. No, I mean, he was doing like 90, man. And it was flaming everywhere. And we were like, we get to the checkpoint and they go, oh, it's closed. He goes, I got the guys from Van Halen back here. And he goes, oh, go ahead. Highway Patrol lets us through. And it was like, I don't care. Yeah, it was like, and we blasted through, got back. And it was just so cool. And Scotty, he came, he was yelling, you guys, man, if you hadn't made it back, that could have been, you got to play tomorrow. And Sammy's like, we don't have to play till tomorrow night. He goes, you could have got a helicopter and got us, and it was not that big a deal. But these poor guys.
But that's his job.
They got to wrangle these guys all the time, man.
Yeah, exactly, herding cats.
Yeah, but it was an awesome trip. It was an awesome trip. So, but anything else about?
No,
Eddie,
I digressed, but I was laughing because when you said that you went to see Dave with Poison and they had left tickets for you, but I thought they were probably in my name.
Exactly, like always happens.
Because my Brad's like, where are mine? I go, mine are here.
Where was the most recent? Was it Sammy Beach then, right?
Beach party. Yeah, that was because we had just done it. We had done it somewhere else, and it was and then it was Sammy's beach party, and I had mine, and you had no envelope, nothing.
I had arranged it through Sam and get there, and Dave, and I called Dave, and he goes, yeah, I'm already here. Got my envelope was there, everything, my passes, I'm good. And I wait in this long line. I get up there and I go, yeah, it's left by Sammy Hagar, and they go, no, we don't have anything. Wait a minute. My friend who I arranged, sorry, we don't have any. Oh my God, I had to make a call.
Brad, it was for everybody out there. Brad had put my name on, and then for some reason, I had talked to Aaron on the phone, and I said, hey, I'm going to go to the thing. And he goes, oh, cool. I'll make sure. And I go, no, Brad's taking care of it. But Aaron probably put it on there.
You're lucky. Because it was,
where the hell is mine?
And if you remember, I was so, just over it at that point.
Yeah, you were.
I was like, all right, I'm going home. And
we did it. No. And then we did the show of, because about that. Because I had to wait like a half an hour just to get a beer, so I was buying like a bunch of them.
Exactly.
Because they ran out of beer.
But see, if it would have just been a normal concert on the beach, everything was there, we wouldn't have stories to tell.
That's true.
If Long Island hadn't have been burned, I wouldn't have a story to tell. And
well, I think I'll tell you this as we wrap up. I think you outdid yourself on the Eruption and the glass. That's cool.
Cool. I appreciate that. And
that's amazing.
If you want to see me make the Eruption cocktail, I'll be doing it. And you can find it, as always, on our YouTube page and at our website. And we've been keeping up with that, getting them posted. So check it out. And for those of you who might be wondering, that was a gift from the band back there. That is their platinum album from the original Van Halen. And that's actually one of the ones that Warner Brothers awarded to them. And it's really cool that the guys would, give that to me.
Your attic. Yeah.
I should display. I'm afraid to display it. What if it becomes discolored from light, or it gets stolen or something?
I remember my buddy Brad Schmidt on Backroom Entertainment, his music studio here in Glendale, is now the Americana. But they had records on the wall that were recorded there, one of which was straight out of Compton. So NWA used to come there all the time. And Brad we should get him on and tell stories of NWA coming in and putting out their cigarettes on his all that shit. Anyway, but I'm walking through the hall and it's like they've got these gold records. And then down over here is Appetite for Destruction. And they had recorded I'm like, dude. And he goes, oh yeah, it's got Guns N' Roses or something like that. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell? Yeah, it's pretty funny.
that's the thing about this city. It's loaded with people
Yeah.
and loaded with tales, and
Yeah.
and it's just, we have been so fortunate to be in a weird, minuscule way
Yeah.
to be part of that whole thing. And
That's
I mean,
yeah. Yep.
if I can say one last thing, it's a personal story, which is the first time I ever heard Van Halen. I was in high school, and I can remember I was with a guy I knew named Mark Peters. He had like a 65 Chevelle with an 8-track, Dave. And I remember we were driving to school, and he took that 8-track. He goes, man, I just got this. This is a new band called Van Halen. I go, called what? It's Van Halen. Popped it in, and I remember going, wow, that is so cool. And listening to that, we sat in the parking lot listening to it, and, you know, going chunk to the next track, chunk to the next track. And it was just, you know, Van Halen was one of the few bands,
beginning to end, that album was just,
where you just went, it stopped you in your tracks. And I was just like,
I mean, the way Jimmy's Crying starts, because that was the first song I heard on the album. I had already heard You Really Got Me, but on Croy radio, KROY, because Roy owned it. This guy, Roy, anyway, Chuck Roy. But literally, when Eruption, the first time I heard Eruption, and then it goes into You Really Got Me, it just, I until I got the album, I didn't realize that it was 2 songs. I was just like, holy shit, this is just amazing. It's like, oh my God, I'm in.
It's just crazy. And I remember that I said years later, I probably said it to you too, but I said it to my wife. I said, if you would have told me, living in Omaha, Nebraska, not being a music guy, not having anything to do with the music industry, that years later, I would call those guys my friends, and I would personally know them, and would have stories of time we spent together.
Yep.
I would have said, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's not real.
You know, and we've been so fortunate to know so many great people between us. And that's what makes Man Seeks Adventure so great, because other people don't have these stories firsthand. They can only relate to them through third parties or others. And
what were they like
to have them. And that's what makes things so great. And that's why Eddie was so great, and we're going to miss him so damn much.
That's right.
So,
cool. All right.
Everybody, think of Eddie, think of the band, think of everybody, and it also makes you remember that tell people that you love them, because you never know how long they're going to be around you. Dave, I love you, big guy.
Love you too.
And I will part with one thing that I was told yesterday, which is very funny and could only be told by Aaron Hagar. And Aaron told me, he goes, man, I loved Eddie. And he goes, just made me uncomfortable because he always kissed me on the lips. And he said that twice on our Shift and Steer show, where if you want to get more Van Halen stories, Aaron and I shared, and Aaron has a whole different perspective.
Oh, he sure does.
And you can get that on Shift and Steer, my other podcast. But it was just funny. He goes, I would say to him, hey, don't kiss me on the lips. It makes me uncomfortable. He goes, every time, he kissed me on the lips. He goes, that's the guy he was. And so, anyways.
All right. Well, I will leave you with happy trails to you.
And you know what, Dave? Jeff Clare just texted me.
Did he?
And
I'm just saying.
We will do it. Let's bring him on next episode and get it from the production side.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we'll try and arrange that. Hey, that's it. Man Seeks Adventure. Thank you, everybody, for going on and giving us 5-star ratings. We've been getting more and more comments on there. That does help the show, and it's really important because Dave and I carve out the time to do it. We love doing it, but we need your feedback, and we need your rating on iTunes. And then you can go find us on our Man Seeks Adventure YouTube page and, of course, our website, Man Seeks Adventure. And of course, Dave is an influencer on Instagram. You can find him at David W. Merritt. So, and find me at Bradley_Fanshaw, where I put up some all kinds of stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Cool.
Man Seeks Adventure.
Rock on.
Dave, I thought you were going to have a guitar and play
us out.
a Van Halen out.
Happy trails to you.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
We meet again.